I'm Matt at Nexus Baseball, and this is episode 5 of the Tommy John Epidemic. This series is a YouTube read of content from the book Plague of the Gods, an outsider's perspective on baseball's Tommy John epidemic, which is available on Amazon. I decided to put this content on YouTube to make the material as accessible as possible. This series examines the science behind the most superhuman action the human body can produce, accelerating a baseball up to 100 miles per hour. It is therefore unsurprising that year on year, average fastball velocities are increasing. Pitchers who always saw a benefit from throwing with high velocity are further incentivized to do so at peak capability, all the way to the highest level of the game. From the first pitch on a Little League field to draft showcases, and then the big leagues, in such a system the hardest throwers rise to the top while those who can't keep up are left behind. The modern pitcher can be compared to a Formula One race car. Maximum speed the whole race, with timeouts for maintenance. This approach is not without its trade-offs, however, as strikeouts frequently mean pitching to the edges of the strike zone to achieve empty swings, often resulting in balls being called. Likewise, trying to blow a ball by a hitter or fool them into a bad swing can mean a lot of foul balls off the bat, particularly with hitters less concerned about striking out. Each of these increases a pitcher's pitch count for the game and subsequently how deep they can pitch into that game. Usually the 6th inning for efficient starters or a single inning for relievers. This is far from the goal of the complete game each start for the earlier eras. With fewer innings per pitcher, more professional pitchers have been required, with starting rotations increasing from 4 starters to 5 and more, depending on available talent in the last few decades. These starters are now joined by large numbers of relievers, tasked with pitching an inning or two as necessary, or in the case of left-handed specialists, sometimes a single batter. The rise of the relief pitcher and the specialist has created tremendous pressure for ever greater numbers of pitchers to eat up innings. On a modern 25-man active roster, it is now common to have a 12-man pitching staff. The actual number of pitchers used in the course of a season, however, is even greater than that, with the option of transferring pitchers with options to the minor leagues or replacing pitchers on the roster who go on the injured list. A team may commonly use 30 or more total pitchers over the course of the season with these transfers. In modern professional baseball, the need for ever greater numbers of pitchers has compounded, with rapidly increasing revenues to make pitchers as a group one of the most valuable commodities in sports. As of 2018, Major League Baseball's pitchers' combined annual salaries totaled over $1.3 billion a year. In this context, the investment in a pitcher's arm is, particularly with baseball's guaranteed contracts, an asset that a team would be wise to protect. Why then do more than 50% of pitchers now end up on the injured list each year, resulting in over $500 million in payroll losses? Opinions among coaches and commentators range from overwork, underwork, too many weights, too much velocity, improper mechanics. Shoulder and rotator cuff injuries are a constant problem, but have been declining decade after decade, seemingly in lockstep with improved strength and conditioning programs. The primary focus of pitching injuries is the now almost ubiquitous UCL reconstruction, also known as Tommy John surgery. This overhand throwing specific injury involves a pitcher tearing a ligament in their elbow, requiring its replacement with a tendon graft. Without the procedure, or a failed procedure, a pitcher's career can end in an instant. Over 30% of MLB pitchers have now had to go under the knife for UCL reconstruction, some multiple times. Startlingly, the number of surgeries performed has been exploding upwards this decade, leaving teams looking for answers. With the massive investment in pitcher salaries, the focus on tackling such injuries is an attempted balance between protecting their investment and winning ball games. Injury prevention has shifted from pitchers trying to protect their careers to a business necessity. It is surprising then that with the lofty stakes, there is no consensus on what causes UCL damage. There is also the human cost to consider to both professional pitchers, their families that depend on them, and increasingly those trying to join their ranks. Unassisted by high-level coaching, injury rates among teens have exploded at rates far greater than those in the professional ranks. Millions of dollars have been invested in research. Most teams now run their own performance training labs, tracking pitching mechanics on the field and off in extreme slow motion. This is aided by computer reconstructions and motion capture technologies that would make a Hollywood studio envious. Ball speeds are continually tracked and combined with other data points, such as spin rate and vertical and horizontal break. Dozens of scientific studies on the motion have been completed, but they too come to conflicting conclusions on the ideal mechanics and even what parts of the body have the greatest impact on pitch velocity. It is unlikely that the quest for pitching velocity will decrease anytime soon, as teams have never been hungrier to reap the rewards of a winning season in professional baseball. Prospects, too, will continue to test their limits, throwing with maximal effort in an attempt to secure their place in the show. This pressure for velocity has also brought out the best in athleticism, with pitchers reaching velocities undreamed of in earlier decades. What must be determined is whether this pressure to reach the limits of human capability is the culprit for the increasing injury rates, or if there is another factor that has been overlooked or unrecognized by the professionals. Professional athletes of all sports put it all on the line with maximum intensity to win, but don't suffer nearly the rates of career-ending injury that professional baseball pitchers do. Is the overhand throwing motion really only achievable by a superhuman few, or can velocity be taught safely and Tommy John surgery be conquered? These are the questions this work attempts to address. To do so, I draw upon the latest science as well as my unique experience to provide pitchers with a new perspective, reframing the narrative and attempting to create consistency out of the seemingly unreconcilable. Join me for episode 6 next week. Remember, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. Your support makes this work possible. Also, if you want to jump ahead, please consider picking up the book on Amazon from the link in the description below. See you next week.